Hello, Facebook. So my name is Evie Burke. The company that you are seeing me from is One Insight Closer. That's my company. And I work with women entrepreneurs and I help women entrepreneurs become incredibly productive. And I do that by helping them figure out what they want to focus on. So today's productivity topic, is around wrapping things up and letting things go. And as it turns out, I've done quite a bit of that over the last couple of weeks, and I wanted to share some of my stories with you. So I'm going to hold off on the one that I teased a little bit in the email about the family tradition that I released this year, and I'll talk about that just a little bit later. But for right now, let me just make sure that I'm live and everyone's seeing me, because I had a problem last time where I thought I had gone live, but no one could see me. So let me just make sure. Well, we'll just go ahead and assume that I am. So anyway, like I said, the topic is on wrapping things up and letting things go. And specifically, we're going to dive into two topics. One is digital things and one is personal things. So let me start out with digital things. So one of the things that I'm looking for my notes, and my detailed notes I seem to have misplaced, but that's okay. I have the rough outline from what I sent yesterday. For the digital things, I had to let go of a few things because I got a new phone. So the old phone that I had, it looks like this. And it was probably about 7 or more years old. And it didn't do fun things like Facebook Live, and I rarely used it for anything other than making phone calls and text messaging, just because it crashed a lot. With the new phone, I can use Facebook. It's really easy. I can do a lot of other things on it, and it was kind of driving me crazy because it was beeping all the time, constantly going off, and it was sidetracking me. It was sidetracking me a lot. So one of the things I let go of was Facebook beeping at me every single time something happened. I let go of emails beeping at me. I let go of a lot of the programs that you install or the apps that you add to your phone. A lot of them will alert you when things happen there. And I turned off a lot of those alerts and those beeps, just because those are things that I will check fairly regularly, and I don't need my phone beeping at me. And I'll admit that I had a little bit of a reluctance to do so, because what if I miss something? What if something happens and I miss it because my phone didn't beep at me? And, it's that fear of missing out, right? And for my sanity, for my productivity, I just had to let it go. So that's what I did. I'm going to see if I click that. I see one person has joined. So what are some things that you need to let go of, or things that sidetrack you that you want to let go of? So like I said, one of those things was my phone beeping at me all the time, and I let go of the old smartphone that didn't serve me anymore. With Facebook, I've added a lot of groups personally for Facebook. So I've joined a lot of groups in Facebook. And one of the things that I had to decide to do, because I must have joined like 20 groups, I'm not sure, it was at least 15. And one of the things I needed to do was remove them from my feed, just because it was really starting to get cluttered. And I will go and I'll check them individually, and I'll decide over the next month which ones I'm going to continue with and which ones I'm going to let go. But I needed them to not show up in my feed anymore. It was really cluttering. And one of the other things that I did over somewhat over the election and somewhat in December was people who were always posting, oh, the world's going to end. I didn't need to see that. That was really frustrating and a downer. And so I removed those people from my feed. I unfollowed them. I am still friends with them and I can still go and check in on them and interact with them on Facebook, but they don't show up in my Facebook feed anymore. And again, that was for my own sanity. It was an energy drain and it was distracting. So don't be afraid to go through and really look at your Facebook feed. Who are the people that are supporting you in their Facebook posts and who's just adding more frustration? And don't be afraid to unfollow them. You don't have to unfriend. They can stay your Facebook friends, but unfollow them so they're not showing up in your feed anymore. And the last thing digitally I did, and I mentioned this in the newsletter on Monday, is I went through and I unsubscribed to, I don't know, maybe a dozen newsletters that I just didn't check them anymore. And a majority of them were people that I really like personally, people that I have met at events that I've gone to or were are coaches in different avenues that I became friends with. And they have really great content, but it wasn't the content that I needed. And so I let it go. I let that space in their newsletter list be for someone else. And as a side note, one of the things I like to joke about is I increased their open rate, because I would very rarely actually open the emails. I'd let them sit for a while and then I'd decide whether I was going to read them or not. So their open rates would go down. Yes, it probably was a small percentage, but because I unsubscribed from them, their open rates went up. So, it's a win-win. I don't clutter they don't clutter my inbox and they get a great open rate. And some of the newsletters were kind of hard to unsubscribe from because I'm fans of them. I wanted to, keep up with them and see what they're doing with their newsletters, but it just didn't serve me anymore. I also did subscribe to some other newsletters just to get a feel for what some other people are doing with their newsletters and for content that I do want to see. So that's, letting some things in. So now as far as personal things, this is where we really get to the meat of it, right? So for personal things, the biggest thing that I let go of this year was a volunteer position for a group that I still belong to this group, but I'm no longer on their board. And it was a fabulous learning experience to be in a leadership position with this organization. And it was something that it was time to let go of. I was really starting to get frustrated with the amount of time that it was taking. And full disclosure, I wanted to be done with it last year at this time, but they couldn't find somebody to fill the position. And so I really felt a lot of ownership and responsibility toward this group. So I decided to stay on. It was a building year for that organization, and I really wanted to help set them up for success. And one of my core values is responsibility, and I felt so much responsibility for them and for that group and for its success that I stayed on another year. And I was really frustrated by it because in a lot of ways I didn't want to be there anymore. And I loved the people and I loved the organization, but I wanted some of my time back. So this year I again said I'm not going to continue on. And again, they came back and they said, well, we can't find anybody to fill that position. Would you think about, if we can't find anybody else, would you think about staying on another year? And I was able to very clearly tell them no. I was not able or willing to do that. And the first time I said it, it was scary. but the more I said it, the more liberating it was. And the more firm I was in that decision. Because I knew that me being more frustrated and annoyed by staying in that position was not going to be what that group needed. That group wants and deserves somebody who's excited to be in that position, who wants to learn about, what that organization does and support them happily. So me stepping away leaves that space for somebody to step into. The universe, God, though, has a sense of humor, and a lot of times when you leave a group like that, you'll get those, "Are you sure you want to do that? Like, how committed are you to that decision? Are you really committed to that decision?" And some of that came in the form of people coming back and saying, "Hey, do you want to do this going forward?" Some of it came in the form of they don't have anybody to fill that position, and there's a lot of work to do with that position. And I chuckled to myself yesterday because as I was doing one of the, maybe it was Monday, as I was doing some wrapping up of one of the projects there that wrapped it up and, passed it on to them, I got an email back from somebody on the board that said, and it was just a big if. She was just exploring possibilities because she hadn't talked to anybody about it yet. She says, "If we were to pay you to do some of these things, would you be interested in that?" And I laughed to myself because, again, the universe, God saying, "How committed are you to that decision of no?" And the knee-jerk reaction was to say no. And I took a step back and I really thought about it. And I still came to the no decision, and I shared that with her, which she was fine with. She understood. But a lot of times when we say no to something, we get those, "Are you really sure? Is that really what you want to do?" And it even comes when we're saying yes to something. And the universe kind of pops in there and says, "How committed are you to that decision? Are you really sure that's what you want?" And sometimes I find that exchange amusing. So that's the volunteer position that I let go of. The story I let go of was I have a story from a time when I was a kid, and it didn't serve me anymore, and it was holding me back. And I let go of a layer of that story that was really holding me back. And I say a layer, and this is a shout out to Linda Herrick because I was working with her on this, and she shared this perspective, and I hadn't heard it before, but I hadn't heard it said like this before, but it's absolutely true. Is a lot of times when we have a story, especially one that is from our childhood, there's a lot of layers to it. And it's like an onion, right? And you let it go. So what Linda had said was, what she had said in response to me saying, "Oh, well, I let go of this story a while ago, but there's still pieces of it there." And she said, instead of saying, "I let go of this story," say, "I let go of a layer of the story." So that you're recognizing how, I don't know how she exactly worded it, but so you're recognizing how complicated, so you're recognizing how many layers there are to it. So, it's like an onion, but you don't know how big that onion is, and you're slowly peeling back the layers, and each layer is a little bit more juicy and more detailed than the layer before it. And that's a lot of what our stories have. That's a lot of how our stories end up, right? We let go pieces of those stories that we're so connected to, we so identify with. There's so much who we are, and we start letting them go, and it's like layer after layer. And then last but not least, I let go of a tradition that my husband and I have done every year since we've been married. And we, in 2017, will have been married for 13 years. And so this would have been our 12th Christmas together as a married couple. And what we have always done is we have stayed home on Christmas Day and spent just Christmas Day with just the two of us. And generally we'll go for a drive along the lake. We'll drive into Chicago or just north of Chicago, and we'll drive around along the lake. And it's just, like an extended date time. It's just fun, and we enjoy each other's company, and sometimes there's Christmas decorations that are on, and getting to see those, and it's time for us. And this year, I decided to change it up a bit, because the truth of the matter is we can do that any day we want. And I was really missing my family this year. I'm feeling like I'm gonna tear up a little bit, so bear with me here. I was really missing my family. I was really feeling like I hadn't spent a lot of time with my parents over the course of the year. And so I said to Nate earlier, the week before Christmas, I said, what if we changed things up a bit, and instead of, doing our normal Christmas Day things on Christmas Day, what if we did them the day before on Christmas Eve, and then on Christmas Day went out to my parents later in the day. We had Christmas, because it fell on a Sunday, we had church in the morning, so we went to church. And then we hung out at home for a little bit, and I wrapped presents, and then we headed out to my parents. And I really, really loved that. And so we changed that tradition up, and it filled me. It filled my cup, it filled Evie. And family's so important to me, so that was a huge change for our small little family to make, that made a huge difference for me. And okay, let me just compose myself. I'm sharing all of these things with you, all of these things about letting go, because productivity hinges on all of those little things, right? It hinges on, maybe hinge isn't the right word, but it's built upon how we're taking care of ourselves, how we're filling ourselves up, the other things that we're doing, and how are they draining us or how are they filling us. And, for the volunteer position, it's not my genius work. It's not the work that I love doing, and so I let it go so that I could have more time doing the things that I really like doing, the things I really love doing. And then the digital things like email and Facebook and, the smartphone beeps, those are the things that sidetrack you really quick. It takes, on average, anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes to really get into a task or a project and kind of get in that zone, right? And so anytime our phone dings or we notice that there's a new email, anything that kind of distracts us, and pulls our eyes away from it, it gets us out of that zone. And it can take us then another 5 to 15 minutes to get back in that zone. And just in that zone and getting those things done in a very efficient way. So being able to stay in that zone is so important to us and to our businesses. So, we're not constantly being sidetracked. That's why it's important to have in your schedule, times when you're checking Facebook, and, having a plan about what are you checking while you're on Facebook and how much time are you going to spend there. Where you have a plan to check your email and what is it you're looking for there. Is it time where you're looking for correspondence from clients or potential clients, or is it a time where you're looking through those newsletters and gathering more information? And it's also important to make sure you have those things that fill you in your schedule. Those things that, like seeing your family and spending time with them, reevaluating what's working for you and what's not around those things. So that's what I have for you today around wrapping things up and letting go. Oh, and the last thing I wanted to share is intentionally letting things in. So a lot of times when we let go of something else, it leaves a space. And nature abhors a vacuum, right? Nature wants to fill things. And for me, the example is my countertop. Anytime I clean off a countertop, I'm so thrilled. It's so clean. Even my desk is an example of this. And pretty soon things get added to it. And for those of you who have kids, I can only imagine that it's that much worse. I don't have any kids, so it's just me and my husband that are filling that countertop back up, but it gets filled quick, right? And our time is the same way, where anytime we create space, it gets filled with something. And so if you want to think back to Stephen Covey and his big rocks analogy, you know, what are the things that you want to put in there? What will serve you? And make sure those things go in first, because otherwise, you know, the sand and the water, all those little niggly things, they're just gonna dive right in there and fill that space up super quick. And then you're not going to have any space for, you know, that big rock, that goal that you wanted to put in and use that space for. So be cognizant, be aware, be intentional with what you're letting back into that time, into that space. Another story I'll tell quickly about how the universe is amusing me with its question of how committed are you to that, is one of the things that I've been really excited about for this year, is with letting that volunteer position go. I've really been excited about the space that it will open up in my mind, in my creativity, and in my schedule, in my energy for my business and for some other things that I want to do. And I got a phone call between Christmas and New Year's from a friend with an opportunity to co-lead something with her. And it's a really great opportunity, and it's not the right time for me. And I really wanted to say yes, but I'm also being very intentional about how I'm spending my time and what I want to be doing. So the universe was saying, how committed are you to just focusing on your business and not having those other commitments in your life right now? How committed are you to that? And because I knew why I had made the decision to leave the volunteer position, I was able to easily say no to that other opportunity. So be cognizant, be aware, be intentional of both what you're letting go of and what you're letting in. So again, my name is Evie Burke. Thank you for joining me on this Facebook Live. And I would love to know what you're letting go of this year or this week or right now, what you're letting go of, and what the intention is behind that. What will it do for you? Or, on the flip side, what is it that you're intentionally letting in? And you can share that in the comments below, or I would love it if you shared it over in the Facebook group, Productivity for Women Entrepreneurs. If you share it over there, I will be sure to comment and celebrate with you either way. And I would just love to know what you're letting go of or what you're letting in this year. So much love to you, and have a fabulous week. Bye. Oops.